We go north, always north. His dogs are dead, his supplies exhausted, but we have a compact we must keep. He lives for my distraction, I live to lead him on. Frankenstein!
Dramatists are always on the lookout for big stories. Sometimes we make up our own, sometimes we take other people's and make plays out of them.
Reading a novel is a very different experience to watching a piece of theatre.
It's a form of plunder. You ransack the old play to turn it into the new one.
I knew that I wanted to change the book into a piece of theatre. The first thing we did was lifted all the dialogue from the novel. We started to just use that as the text, and we very quickly realised that doing that was deathly dull.
It would be very difficult to take almost any line from Mary Shelley and put it in an actor's mouth and make it sound good.
Sometimes in a novel there can be some fabulous dialogue that you feel instinctively as a screenwriter that's not going to work.
And it wasn't until we got rid of Charlotte Brontë's text and we said, look, let's understand what these characters are trying to say in the conversation and then just use your own words. That took a long time to find the language for the play.
I think there's a particular skill in taking the language of another time and making it sound plausible to our modern ears, but at the same time not sounding modern. I don't want it to sound modern, I want it to sound like it could exist in 1818.
I want it to feel very clear and clean and easy to speak for the actors. So it doesn't feel like a novel, it feels like spoken dialogue, as people might speak now if they didn't swear, use slang, or didn't have iPhones.
It's a grappling, wrestling process. It's the hardest part of it, I think.
Any novel between 200 and 500 pages is too big to put on a stage.
You have less time to tell the story and you have to make radical cuts, do terrible bits of surgery.
It's a very, very painful process. If I had my way, I would make a piece of theatre that lasted 12 hours. And I wouldn't cut anything, but you can't do that, I'm not allowed to.
However complex the plotting, there's always a fundamental thing of story, which is that all stories are generally quite simple. Something happens to someone or they make something happen and they want something and they either get what they want or get something else they didn't know they wanted. There's usually that kind of progression in any story. Stories with less characters are easier to adapt. If it's a story about 3 people, that's easier than a story about 20 people.
Our play it's not exactly a two-hander, but there are only 2 big characters in it, and that's Victor Frankenstein and his creature. There's no Clerval, there's no Justine, there's no Walton. I think what you do is try and find the dynamic of a scene. In this scene, in chapter 5 of the book, Victor makes his creature, is terrified when the creature looks at him, runs away, and then finds his friend Clerval. It would be possible to tell the story of chapter 5 as a monologue, or you could tell it with a lot of people involved who aren't necessarily in the chapter that Mary Shelley writes. You need to find your own approach.
You have to use your instinct, you have to think of moving the story forward.
I'd say try and forget everything you think you know. Try and forget everything you've been taught and just look at the words on the page. What does Mary Shelley actually say? And then look for your own way in which to tell it.